Hello and welcome to another Doctor's Assistant 1 video. Today I'm doing a review of Iron Bright by Chris Chapman, is it? Which reminds me, I know in one of my older videos, a new news video I think it was, I kept referring to this story as Iron Bridge. Again, I'll just reiterate the same old thing that I keep reiterating, presumably, that I am dyslexic, so sometimes if I am reading something and I get it wrong, that's why. So, please don't get too annoyed about that. However, if it does annoy you, I mean, you can only imagine how annoying it is for me. So, so that out of the way, you've got Colin Baker there in the main limelight with this awesome lantern and then this ghostly, ghoulish figure, and that which almost looks like the face reminds me of the character Nida or whatever from Crimson Order that Mark Gatiss wrote. Not a great story, not a story that I like, but yeah. Then you've got the TARDIS in the background, then you've got the sort of Doctor Who, Iron Bright, and all the sort of Sixth Doctor typography and text, and then by Chris Chapman, and then some other stuff, and then Big Finish, Wheel of Stories. However, what's significant about this release is the fact that they don't have the banner at the side, and that, as more recent releases like this and that have now not got the banner, and that's on the inside. You have the new Doctor Who TV show sort of 13th Doctor, almost at 12th then, 13th Doctor logo. However, you can have it either that way or, as I say, the original sort of Doctor specific one. You've got BBC Doctor Who Brand New Adventures full cast audio there. You've also got Doctor Who there, the spine, it has obviously the new one logo, as well as Iron Bright, 6th Doctor, BBC, and then Big Finish, and then 239, meaning it's the 239th release in the monthly range. So it's one of the more recent ones that I picked up in the monthly range, surprisingly enough. Again, I got it back the most recent time that I went to Leeds with my mum, and that it was one of the few stories they did have there. The blurb, running time 120 minutes, so 2 hours, and then the cast list as well, and then just the 2 discs on the inside and the booklet sort of thing, and that. So yeah, I mean, I expected it to be a pure historical. It wasn't great. I don't know. I mean, it's difficult. It's like I can barely even remember that much about this story and that. And I don't know. I mean, if you like this story, more power to you. I never actually intentionally go out of my way to not like a Doctor Who story, regardless of whether it's a classic series 1, comic book, BBC book, or in this case, audio book, or audio play and or book, Big Finish audio even. I think the performances are really good, and that, Colin and the guy who plays Isambard Kingdom Brunel, badass name by the way, I love the name, and beforehand I did actually research quite a bit into Isambard Kingdom Brunel and that, and you don't really need to know much about the character, as I suspected you would, and I also, as I say, suspected that it would be a pure historical. It's more akin to Empress of Mars, so sort of a historical mixed with futuristic elements, which isn't a bad thing per se, as I really do like Empress of Mars. However, here, as I say, I was expecting one thing. It subverted my expectations, but it also, I think the thing is, if I'd have known that it was sort of going to be pseudo-historical and or have sci-fi elements, that I could have sort of perceived and or set my expectations better, because I'd have had a better idea. Whereas prior to this, I just sort of came into it blind, only knowing that it was based around the Thames, and or the fact that Isambard Kingdom Brunel and his father are making a tunnel and or train track, if not tunnel, under the Thames, and there's ghostly-like figures. The Doctor gets embroiled and embraced into the hijinks as usual, into these sort of matters, and that's about all I knew about the story. But yeah, I mean, it's the acting is all good. All the characters are good, and well cast and well performed. The audio sort of quality is superb. It's one of the best, for audio design. I think it's not very much pushing the Big Finish audio team, however, in that regard. But I would hope, after 239 releases, they've pretty much nailed the sort of audio stuff. The basics. The TARDIS dematerializing, Doctor opening the door, the stairs, some of the more sci-fi elements and or noises and bleeps and boops, and that, as it were. It's just, it depends on what you really want from a Doctor Who story, and as to whether or not you're going to really like this story, and that. And that, I don't think it's the worst Big Finish audio story that I've ever listened to, but it's definitely probably of the 4 Colin Baker stories and or 6 Doctor stories that I've reviewed on the channel so far, which have been the Juggernauts, ID, ID, Curse of Davros, and Iron Bright. It's probably nearer the bottom, unfortunately, for 6 Doctor stories, for me anyway, personally. Again, I don't even get how they've sort of resolved the story, really. Maybe I wasn't paying enough attention, but I did often find myself either pausing the story or just sort of listening to it, but also sort of it being in the background, but me trying to listen to it, but me just sort of fading away and just thinking about lots of other stuff, other Doctor Who things and other things, period. But yeah, I mean, again, I really want to like this story, but it's not, I don't know, there's just, maybe if I re-listen to it, I might like it a bit more, and that, I think there was a Big Finish audio in the Jenny box set. I think the first one of that, I gave a lower score than this, and that, so that one would be the lowest Big Finish audio score that I've given, which would be a 5, and that, I mean, again, I can't even really remember much about this story. There's something to do with the Thames that I won't spoil, but what happens in the Thames and what's revealed to happen in the Thames is kind of interesting, but it just sort of just doesn't do much else other than the sort of shock factor of, oh my god, this is a thing, and then it sort of just feels like a bit dithery and a bit sort of slow and boring, and again, it's not bad, it's just dull, it's not like offensively bad like, say, something like Hellbent, but it's not, Heaven Sent levels of amazing, or as I say, Empress of Mars, like, it's not as interesting to me. I just thought there'd just be more history stuff. Isambard Kingdom Brunel, the guy who plays him perfectly. The guy who plays his dad is really good, as well as the maid. Colin Baker gives a decent performance as well, as usual. He's really good in this. And that, again, the sound design's good. It's just the core story sort of just bored me, silly as it were. And that, there are odd little bits that I did like, a bit of the humour, a bit about, like, when, someone asks about the Doctor, I think it was Isambard, Kingdom Brunel, says something about, like, do you like your father? And then the Doctor's about to respond, and then we get interrupted, which I kind of liked, because, still adding that mystery of who the Doctor is and that, and that, which I like. There's some decent bits about people thinking that the Doctor's a spy, and the fact that this Doctor in particular even makes a comment in this story about, oh yeah, often people think I'm a spy, which is ironic considering that I was thinking in my head, that's odd considering the attire that this Doctor wears. It's probably the least appropriate for someone who would be a spy, so why everyone thinks he is beyond me. But yeah, overall, I'm just going to bite the bullet. I think I'd give this story a 6 out of 10. It's sort of okay. It's nothing offensively bad. It's not as bad as, say, Night Terrors, or, as I say, Heaven Sent, or whatever. No, not Heaven Sent, sorry. Hellbent, even. You know, it's not as offensively bad or boring or like Delta and the Bannerman levels of bad, but it's nothing particularly great, in my opinion. If you love this story, great. But yeah, thanks for watching. Comment, rate, and subscribe.